sort of extensions like this, because it means I can really easily line up different patterns without having to actually think about it. So let's turn off the interactive mode, make my brush a little bit bigger, and just extend that out a little bit. Cool, and I've been a little bit loosey-goosey on the edges, so I'll come in and maybe just use the eraser tool just to come in and tighten those up a little bit. Keep it tight. There we go. Nice. And I could probably tighten that up a little bit there, but you know, it's this is going to be good enough for jazz. Very nice and simple. Let's clean that bit up as well at the bottom. There we go. So this is looking all right, and I've got all of my paint strokes that I've made saved in my paint history. So what I can do with this one now is I can then repeat those paint strokes across all my frames, or maybe just across the work frame, or across, you know, any sort of custom range of frames that I want to. But if we take a look at this shot, let's play this shot back. You can see this shot is actually moving. So we're going to want to track this shot in before we do any sort of auto painting on it, which leads us to our second module. So Silhouette Paint is actually made up of two modules. It's made up of a paint module and a roto module. And the roto module we can use to sort of do hold in or hold out masks, so we can, you know, choose where our paint is being painted. Or in this case, we can do it to make a bit of a motion track. So if I come in and do this one, buildings foreground track, and I can just come in and draw a few little shapes around the elements that I want to track in. And I'm going to track in along the buildings. And we've got three different types of tracker. We've got a regular point tracker, we got Silhouette's planar tracker, and we've also got a built-in version of the Mocha planar tracker as well. And if I just track that in, see that's tracking in nice and fast. We don't really have time to go across the, you know, a lot of the ins and outs of the trackers. I've actually got a 30-something minute tutorial that just talks about the different trackers up on the Boris FX website and on our YouTube channel. So there's quite a lot of in-depth stuff that we can do with the trackers here. So once that's all tracked through, I can come in up to our top of the viewer and actually stabilize our viewer around that track. So I do this for a number of different reasons. One of the big reasons is to obviously check how our tracking is doing. And the way that we can do that is to just see if these buildings are staying exactly still. So if I go to the beginning and the end frames, those should be exactly in the same place, and they are. And if they're in exactly the same place, it means they're perfect for our auto paint. Another thing we can do with this is actually use this stabilized viewer to help when we're doing our actual paint work. I'll come in, I'll show you a way that we can do that in just a second. So if I come in back into my paint, select the strokes that I want to do the auto paint on, and now if I come down to the bottom right, under my transform, I'll have a list of all of the layers that I have, including that tracked buildings foreground one. So I can come in, go to the match move, and then we'll just play those paint strokes forward. And that's going to apply all of the strokes that I've made, including the clone and the eraser tools, with those in the right position. And as you can see, I've still got my viewer stabilized, so it looks like the paint isn't really doing anything apart from just painting in the same place. But if we destabilize the viewer, then we can see that that is looking really, really nice. And it's this sort of stabilize, destabilize workflow that is so important in paint to try and get those nice, consistent results. Because without consistency, your paint work is going to look terrible, and you're going to spend more time kind of fixing it than you did doing it in the first place. So this is looking all right, nice and consistent. If I exit out into After Effects now and just play that through, you can see that the when I'm doing the RAM preview, that's RAM previewing in pretty much real time. So we don't really have any kind of render hit at all with the paint, because all of the work has been done in the Silhouette Paint application.
You know, Ben, you said at the beginning of this that like paint is a one of the pillars of VFX.
Yeah.
And one of the I think one of the things you guys nailed with Silhouette is that while paint is a pillar of VFX, it always requires all of these other steps either before and after. And you know, even just what you showed there with having the tracking and the stabilization, you know, all built in right into Silhouette Paint, that's just an enormous time saver. I mean, from an efficiency standpoint, it's fantastic, because you'd have to, without that, I mean, we do this every day, you'd have to prepare these clips for paint, you know,
yeah,
ahead of time, and then undo this stuff, especially the stabilization after. So it's one of my favorite things about Silhouette.
That's it. And you know, it's actually one of my favorite things about Silhouette as well.
I knew we would get along.
I know, exactly. It's brilliant.
Instantaneous.
Yeah, I'll just jump in for a second too. I just want to mention that, you know, a lot of Mocha users use, you know, tracking obviously to assist their paint or their cleanups. And there's even a script that they use to stabilize their tracking. So it's really cool to have, you know, the Mocha Silhouette combination together, that they can just stabilize, do their paint, unstabilize. And the fact that you can stabilize the viewer on like unlimited portions of the screen, that's incredibly cool, because you're like, I just want to stabilize this guy's hand and paint on it. I just want to stabilize this guy's face and paint on it. It's very, very powerful.
Let's do that. I've actually got this here. Let's bring it into the right screen. And this, I've not actually painted on this at all, but if we have a look at the roto node on this one here, I've got two different tracks made up. One of those is for the arm, and one of them is for the background. So if we just stabilize across, or we come up to the viewer, I can stabilize just on that arm, or stabilize on, let's let that play through because that's actually quite fun to look at, or we can just stabilize on the background. So the background is going to stay completely rock solid now. And yeah, I think because I've been working with this for such a long time, it's actually really easy for me to forget just how important and amazing it is to just be able to use one click rather than setting up, you know, multiple nodes to do the stabilize, destabilize workflow. Just having, you know, one click to be able to swap between these different elements, and then again, just like being able to turn it off with another click is just, you know, it's really, really useful. And I don't know how to sort of, you know, overemphasize that.
Yeah, it's really one of my favorite features. As someone who's been, you know, using Mocha and Flame and Nuke and After Effects, you know, for many, many years, to, you know, but recently learned Silhouette in the last year. You know, for me, this is really my favorite feature.
Yeah.
Well, the bonus here too is that the stabilization is all occurring on the fly, so there's no image degradation. There's no processing that's occurring to the actual frame. It's all taking place in the viewer.
Oh, that's wild! I didn't know that. That's fantastic, because oh, that's just great. Good to know.
Yeah, so it means that if we stabilize across the arm, you know, we looked at like at the beginning of a couple of the examples of the, you know, that sort of animated paint strokes going along. Having, you know, trying to chase your tail on those can be like really, really painful. So if we come in, I'll just let's choose, yeah, yellowish or green. Maybe green's good to show up here. Matches the smoothie there. So if I just sort of draw up one stroke there and move forward, you know, the arm is going to be in pretty much the same place each time. So I don't have to go chasing the arm on each you know, consecutive frame. Another thing we can do actually, and this is really useful for doing that kind of work, is we've got onion skinning as well. So I can look at, frames forwards or backwards with onion skinning turned on. So I know that when I go to my next frame that I've already got my paint stroke done there. So I can just come here, move here, and just be drawing along like something around about that there. And I don't really have to move my hand at all when I'm painting, which is something that's, again, really, really handy. Let's turn off onion skinning and turn off my, turn off my stabilization. I'll set my work range to just be the frames that I've painted, which is going to be those 12 frames there. And, within seconds, you can start to see how we can begin to use those different sort of tools to just very, very quickly check your consistency of paint between frames, or do some fun kind of nice animation along there as well. So that's kind of cool. I like that one. Let's reset this.
That's great. I just want to emphasize again, like I had no idea that the real-time stabilization we're doing is just viewer based, because we stabilize all the time for the purposes of helping with paint. But in the work that we do, especially the beauty work and the long form, like the episodic work that we do, we're always very conscious that each one of these stabilize and unstabilize is performing some type of manipulation or degradation to the image. So this is just that's maybe a game-changing feature for me.
Yeah, and you're really, if you're doing like the traditional stabilize, destabilize, you're really at the mercy of the quality of whatever you're using to do the that stabilization, whether it's a sort of corner pin or transform, whatever distortion is being placed to understort and try and keep those pixels looking nice. And you'll always get some sort of degradation with that kind of traditional workflow, I think.
Yeah, in fact, people are asking about that right now on the YouTube stream, so it's cool that you're mentioning it.
The other thing that you can do that if you get to a more advanced level, but Ben's just doing stabilization based on one layer, but you can place additional trackers or layers within layers. So you can get rid of gross motion, say, with the first layer, and then have trackers or other layers nested within to stabilize with double or even triple motion by layering trackers within each other.
That's wild.
Thanks, Marco.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben, some people in the YouTube stream, I think maybe it would be just to jump in with a couple questions. Someone was asking about color correction, or color correction on clones, and maybe even touch on dodge and burn and detail stuff like that.
Let's have a look at that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Let's hop out of this shot, and I'll hop into something else. Let's come to, where are you? Yeah, sure do. So if I open up, is this the one? Yeah, okay, cool. I think this is the one without any paint. It is absolutely the one without any paint. But again, even while doing beauty work, it's really important, because I know I want to do auto paint across this shot. It's really important that I set up my different areas. So I've got my, neck stabilized out with one. So whatever else is going along here, the neck is always nice and stable. And I've got under the chin stabilized out here. And I've also got, probably the most important one is actually the cheek being stabilized out here as well. So if we take a look back in paint, I'm going to come back into the skin. I'll show you a couple of things that we can do. We'll look at the color correction in regards to the skin as well. I think it's probably a good place to start. We've got this thing that's called auto grade. So if I just try and do a clone from here over to one of these blemishes there, let's maybe turn up the opacity. That'd be a good idea. And let's bring that up a little bit. So you can see, if I'm not painting just in the color, these little things, there we go. You can see that we can get away with cloning from one area that's pretty close to each other or close to the destination. But if I try going a little bit further afield, it can be really easy to kind of give the game away with color there. If I turn on auto grade and do exactly the same stroke or exactly the same dot, you can see that isn't as visible, because what auto grade tries to do is it tries to do that clone, but match in the color from the actual destination that's already there. So you don't get those sort of big jumps in color that again kind of are there to give the game away. It's all about consistency and making sure that everything looks right. And especially with the smaller movements, any kind of small kind of like flicker within paint becomes immediately visible. So having sort of things like the auto grade to try and match in those sort of things kind of helps out that kind of job quite a bit. Another thing that I like to do with actual blemishes on skin, I'm going to undo some of this, don't want to make her look too good, is we've got a blemish tool. And what the blemish tool does, let's zoom in a little bit here, is it kind of blurs stuff out, but also introduces an amount of grain back into the image, so it doesn't just look. If I did that same stroke just with a blur, you can start to see, especially when we sort of zoom out, you can start to see we end up with these big blurred patches. What the blemish tool does by adding in, let's actually, you can see that blurred bit just there. What the blemish tool does by kind of adding in that grain over the top of it is it helps to disguise what we're doing with the brush, with that blur. So it makes everything a lot more kind of natural and sort of seamless. And that's really what we're after, is trying to keep things nice and seamless. So if I was sort of touching that up, then just a few little dots around. Probably don't want to go too big with that, because that starts to again show up as giving the game away a little bit. If you're sort of going a bit too far and a bit too wide, there are other techniques to do, but blemish tool is a great one for sort of doing your initial work, especially on the skin. I know that some people use blemish tool for pretty much everything to do with kind of hiding sins. So it's a really good little tool. But
yeah, Ben, it's a great implementation, man. We look at the beauty is one of the kinds of work we do most of at Lively, and the trend in the last definitely last year or two in the beauty business has been less is more, to make it look more natural, to make all the cleanup we do look more natural, and all of these things that the blemish tool does in terms of adding noise back in and the auto grade. These are all things we have traditionally had to do separately. They were all separate passes or separate functions. And the fact that they're integrated like this really shows that, the development of this tool was kind of orchestrated or motivated rather by people who do this every day. It's just a wonderful implementation.
Yeah. And it's not just, yeah. And you can, and once we've got it good on one frame, the great stuff is that because of the auto paint, is that I can then go to the work frames, make sure we're stabilizing on the cheek, which we are. I'll turn off that so we can see that play back. And, that is now just automating all of those strokes across the image. So long as we've got, probably didn't track as much there, but so long as we've got, good consistent tracking, then this sort of small detailed work is just really nice and fast. And it's because a lot of the time, all those kind of small details can start to suck up a lot of time. It's you don't get that kind of care by just slapping a filter over the top of it. You've got to, it's there to look good and to look natural. We've got
everything Ben's doing is being recorded. Every stroke, every state change of the brush, whether he's changing the size, the color, and then individual strokes or groups of strokes or all the strokes for an entire frame can be played back with or without tracking.
Yep. And I can set up, like with the paint history here, I can actually make and name groups. So with this one, if I just do like blemish removal, just as that group there, I can happily make up another group here, which is going to be like dodge, burn, cheek, or something like that. And then come in, and I've given myself a kind of reminder what it is I'm doing with these particular strokes, and that can be really useful if you've got to do multiple tracks in multiple passes. You're still painting up one frame and then letting the auto paint do most of the hard work for you, but you've given yourself that reminder of, okay, this is what I'm doing on the cheek here, this is what I'm going to be doing with the dodge burn on the cheek again. It's those sort of things that kind of really make the work a lot easier and a lot more kind of manageable. With regards to dodge and burn, I mean, we've got the dodge burn tools right here. One of the ways that I like to use this is to come in with a really low opacity brush and use build up on here. So if we just use this as 100%, what the dodge is doing is it's coming in and it's making my, let's put this into the midtones. Yeah, it's making my image lighter. So it'll go over the top lots of times. There we go. Make it really nice and horrible, radioactive. But basically, it's making the area lighter across my range and with the exposure that I've given it here. And burn is doing pretty much the opposite. It's coming in and making areas a bit darker. Again, using the parameters that I've got there. Now, this is one of the little techniques that gives that nice sort of polish to not just to skin, but also to products. I'll show you a little example of that in a second. But it's one of those ones where you don't know you've gone too far until you've gone too far. So it's something which needs kind of building up nice and slowly, because if you don't have, if you're too heavy-handed with it, it does become kind of obvious really quickly. But if I come in with a sort of low opacity and with build up turned on, I can just go over the same area a few times. And I mean, that's probably a little bit subtle on the stream, but on the monitor, it's kind of making quite a nice difference just to sort of lift that area up. If I come in, yeah.
And I know you come from sort of a color grading background. You're very talented with Resolve. I mean, how has this changed how you grade?
With grading, I mean, it changes. It's more changed how I deal with retouch, because I spent
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I spent a few years in Photoshop retouching, doing high-end work for high-end photography retouch. And a lot of those techniques just wouldn't translate properly into sort of moving pictures. You just couldn't do it because you didn't have those same sort of controls. You would kind of fudge it a little bit with doing color correction, lots of masks and mattes and things. But when Silhouette Paint came along and brought in dodge and burn, like all of a sudden, right, it kind of brought out my good old retouch gene back in there. It's like, oh yeah, you know what you're doing with that, and it sort of let me explore those old techniques that I was using for Photoshop, but now at 25 frames a second.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I've noticed some of the work that you've been doing with that, some of the new videos as well. It's like you're not, when you're grading with masks, it's a lot different than when you're grading with a brush, right?
Yeah. If we look at like it's one of the product shots I've got, like all of this here, actually, that's actually not a bad shot. I'd forgotten about this shot in here. Like this one here was like a shot on a really, really overcast day. And as you can see, like everything was really, really flat. And by using dodge and burn, and only dodge and burn, you can actually start to bring out like the different elements within the shot. Even these trees here on the left-hand side, at the original, they were pretty flat. And then just by using dodge and burn, a few strokes there, boom, 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 you've actually built up a bit of shape and a bit of texture within those trees. And that makes that sort of fit in a lot nicer. Let's stay away from the transition. I take a
was that a Sapphire Crash zoom that I saw there?
How dare you?
Z zoom?
Give away all of my secrets.
Definitely Sapphire Continuum in there.
Yes, yes.
So,
I mean, a question about the buildup.
Yeah.
Is that also something, the number of buildup passes that you do, is that also available as like in the history as an editable thing? So if you wanted to go back and
it's not, but what you can do, hang on, let's pop back into something. I'll come back to this one. Where was I? It's probably that one there, wasn't it? What you can do, if you make if you like build something up here, I'm going to go too far with this one. Let's just zoom in a wee bit, take that down. I'm just going to go too far, and it's going to keep going. It's going to go radioactive quite soon. If I don't like the last stroke that I've done, if I think that's gone too much, what I can do is I can undo it just with, regular Control or Command Z. I can make a change, which take the opacity down to like 4 or 5, take it down to 4, and I've got a replay button. And what that does, it replays that last stroke that I did with those updated values. It's
That's great.
Probably easier to see if I do like a stroke here. I get 100% big red stroke there. I'm just going to undo that, change my brush to be a big blue brush instead, hit replay. Everything else about that stroke stays exactly the same. What I've done with that stroke stays the same, but it updates what I've done with the parameters down there. It's amazing.
And don't forget, guys, I think Paul Miller, who's the head developer, just mentioned this on the Facebook channel, is one of the most powerful things about this auto paint feature too, is that if you got a new version of this source clip and you just plug it in, and all that auto paint can just be reapplied to this new source clip.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yep.
Where's Paul at? Why don't we have Paul up on here?
Yeah. Paul's busy answering questions on YouTube. Thank you, Paul.
No more space in the grid.
No, it's great. Like Ross, I didn't even think about that. If I were to get a new version of this shot from the colorist, with an updated grade,
exactly.
I could then reapply all these strokes with, but play around with the opacity and things like that. It's not a do-over, or it's not something that won't be relevant anymore. That's great.
Yeah, and also because you are using clone strokes or dodge and burn strokes from that source, it's gonna be reapplied with that to that new source in a relative way, right?
Yeah, because it's procedural in that sort of way, because we're taking from the source there. Actually, that's a good point. We don't, when we're grading, when we're cloning, we don't have to clone from the original clip. We can choose up to 2 separate clips as well to bring those in as well. So that can be really useful if you're wanting to clone from maybe from a clean plate, or if you want to clone, like bring a sky replacement back in or something. You've got the ability to bring in external clips.
I love that 2 clone brush, from either side offset. I don't know if Andy's seen that one, but I think he.
Let's have a look at dual wielding. There we go.
It's pretty fun stuff.
So we have a look here.
I mean, it's simple, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So if I take something from this side, so I've got one clone tool coming from underneath, I can actually set up a second brush in my clone and swap between them as well with just a simple keyboard shortcut, and be cloning from a different area, just like that there. And I can dual wield those. So if you have a little look, you've got
oh man,
it's cool, right?
and then we can sort of clone over the top there, and we get a mix of what's above and underneath, which is kind
That's
of
great.
Hey, Ben, have you actually, and I might have missed it because I was paying attention to the chat for a second, but have you showed the color and the detail separation clearly, or?
I thought I showed it clearly.
Okay, I might have
You
missed
did
it.
mention, Ben, it was coming back.
I did mention it was coming back. Yes, that's true. Yeah, because again, this is one of the things for skin. Because if we take a little look at the skin here, you can see that some of the problems that we're having aren't uniformly in both the color and the detail. Like some of the sort of blemishes only show up in detail. So if that's the case, then we only have to clone in detail. If some of the stuff is showing up just in the color, maybe something here, for example, then I can clone just in the color. Oh, I've just been reminded of something in my head. Something else that I've taken from my my beauty retouch days. Something else we've got in the display options. Not only is Silhouette Paint completely, OCIO compliant, we've got OCIO color space that we can do and the transforms there. We can also bring in different LUTs as well. So one of the things I like to do for, especially for skin work, is show up with different kind of false color areas on my source, because I think that actually makes it a lot easier to see not only where the blemishes are, but more importantly, when I've made a mistake. So you can see here, if anything starts to kind of fall out from where I think it should be, like this blemish around about there, I could let's make that a little bit obvious. Let's put this into normal and clone from I'll turn off dual wielding, clone from here to here. You can see that's going to be really, really obvious. That's a bit of an extreme example, but you can start to see the kind of areas that you need to start to clear up a lot easier within the within this false color area. And this is something that I used to use a ton in Photoshop, and it would always be a bit of a pain to set up in just in your regular compositor. But again, now it's right there as a drop down menu, so I can have a look at that. I know that's going to look quite nice when I turn everything off. It's going to look nice and natural, and it does. So,
man, where did you get those false color LUTs from?
These false color LUTs are actually available online for free. Though if you're using Resolve, it's really, really easy to make your own LUTs. And most of the ones that I do in with this kind of work, it's if I open up Photoshop, I'll show you exactly the kind of nice stuff that I like to do. Which is basically just make weird curves that completely throw off where the colors are meant to be. Let's have a look at my face. That's my face. And if I do a curve like that, bring in curves. And this is basically what those LUTs are going to be doing. Is it's going to be taking my regular colors and kind of just throwing them off. So you can start to really see where those different areas are. So we can sort of save those out, and you really get to see where those problem areas are. It's a
cool technique.
Really powerful technique.
Just don't show them to your clients, Andy. They might like that look, right?
It's gonna be a whole new look. That's 2021 right there, man.
I like that look. That looks like
it's that natural minimalist look I was describing just a few minutes ago.
That's it. That's what it's all about. Just keeping things nice and subtle.
Exactly.
We got about 5 minutes before the hour. I don't want to kill the vibe here because I love this. This is going fantastic. It is going.
You're just scratching the surface, right? Just scratching the
surface. Really are.
I just got to say, I love, like even for beauty work, that the frequency separation is a technique we use all the time, separating detail from color. But again, 100%. That's usually something that has to be a separate pipe in the composite. And sometimes that's a separate pre-render or a separate bit of media. And just to have that as an option, as a button, just going to be integrated into Silhouette the way that it is just fantastic. Huge
Cool.
time saver.
Cool.
I'll jump in with another point too, beyond the beauty work. I think a lot of people these days, they're used to sort of auto tools that will remove objects, whether it's After Effects Content Aware Fill or Mocha Pro, or even in Nuke, you have some tools, and Flame probably has some tools these days to remove objects. But when you're removing an object that the clean frames don't exist in the shot, you really have you do have to create new frames, right? You do have to paint. And having access to sort of the advanced clone tools are really, really helpful to assist those kind of techniques as well.
Like this shot here was a sort of perfect meeting of Silhouette Paint and Mocha, because I used Mocha Pro to kind of get rid of do most of the work on this, but I had to have clean plates to drive that. So I drew up a clean plate at the start and at the end of the shot, and then let Mocha, the Mocha Pro remove module, do the stuff in between. And there were a few points where I had to do sort of manual touch up afterwards. And because I was only having to do that manual touch up on one frame and then auto paint the rest of it, it made that a whole lot easier than it otherwise would. And there's an option, because we've talked a lot about auto paint. You don't actually have to use auto paint, because there's an option here to just hold on one single frame. So if I've painted up, like I've done a matte painting, a proper matte painting on this, and done everything, all the details that I need, if this isn't moving, or it's not got a lot of moving elements within it, then there's no point sitting in and painting every single frame all over the, on every single shot. So what you can do is you can just hold on one frame, and this is going to look obviously very odd because it's only showing me the little paint, but you can hold on one frame, hold the paint on one frame, and I can freeze frame this. Time freeze frame. There we go. And that's going to just give me something that I can then motion track in, or just, use normal compositing techniques just to sort of composite that in nice and quickly. So, you don't have to do the auto paint for everything if you don't need to. It can be faster in some circumstances just to paint up one single frame. Get it done that way.
As great as Photoshop is, just not having to exit your application, is huge. And even an editor, using Premiere could access these tools. For sure.
And, we haven't even talked about that. I think I spoke very briefly at the start about the fact that these projects aren't, they're sort of host agnostic. So you can take a paint project that you've got in from After Effects and bring it into Premiere, or into Resolve, or into Nuke, or into Fusion, and you can run the same shots. Let's see what I've got here. This is the one we were looking at, and in fact, because I've had that shot applied, or that same project applied within Premiere already, it's automatically picking up the fact that I have done some work on this shot.
Very cool.
So it's automatically got all of those things there. So I don't have to go in and repaint or do anything like that.
That's great.
The other point to go over is that once you've painted a stroke, it's rendered at the point you lift up your mouse or your pen. So when you come back to After Effects or Premiere, or back to Nuke, out of Silhouette, it's essentially rendered. You still would have to do a render, but at that point, it's just really fetching the pre-painted frames off a disk, so it's really fast.
Yeah, absolutely. That's if we come in, I'll open up the. Is this the one? Yeah, I think it's the one we just done. No, that's not the one. I might have saved it into the right place. Let's have a look. Sci-fi building. I probably saved it into the wrong place. obviously. So we've got this one in here, which I've painted up, and that's, you know, that's now a real-time playback in Premiere as some of the buildings get knocked down. But you know, you get the point. There's not that long render process that you normally would expect with Paint, because that render bit has been already done. It's already saved to disk. So you're just playing back stuff already from disk.
That's great.
It's cool. Hey Ben, I'm just going to mention this too, just for the case for the live stream, because again, you've really just scratched the surface, but I really encourage everyone to check out, who's interested, to check out on Boris FX. There's a Getting Started series for Silhouette Paint, which is what, 2.5 hours, Ben?
It's touching on 3 hours. Yeah.
It's quite a lot of work, and it goes very into depth into every single area that you've discussed, right?
It does. Yeah. And it goes beyond some of the stuff that I've talked about. And, you know, there's still a lot of the more advanced techniques that I'm planning to talk about in future tutorials as well. So it's a great product because it's nice and fast, and it's very, very deep. You know, there's like 17 tools in total, but you know, the way that you use those is the important bit. It's those techniques rather than the tools themselves.
Right. Even though the plugin is sort of like a V1 version, it's really, this is based on years and years of releases and in-depth features from the full Silhouette. Absolutely,
and you know, that pedigree does show. It really is something. I think I've got to throw back, because otherwise people aren't going to win any prizes, are they?
That's what fantastic stuff, Ben. Thank you so much.
There's more, but that will have to wait. I'll have to wait.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Ben.
Thank you very much.
Ben. All right.
Great job, Ben. That was awesome.
Apologize to everyone out there that, you know, halfway through our live stream ended. That was totally my fault. But we jumped back on. So live and learn, right?
Live theater, man.
Live theater. All right, let's give away some prizes, right? This is the fun stuff. Our esteemed guest, Andy, let's kick it off with you, and let's just go big or go home. Let's give away a seat of Nuke Studio, right? Thank you so much to the Foundry. Thank you so much to the Foundry, an amazing gift. We were talking about $12,000 value. So Andy, why don't you tell people who won the seat of Nuke?
That seat goes to Daniel Katz, who was watching the stream on YouTube. So congratulations, Daniel. Go out and make some great stuff.
Congratulations, Daniel. That's amazing. Okay, so
I'm getting chills, man. That was exciting. That was really great.
I don't know. I'm feeling cheated.
Yeah, I thought you were giving the Nuke seat to Andy.
Andy Milkus wins the seat.
Always a bridesmaid, you know what I mean?
Cinema 4D. I think I would like that. Okay, let's go right down the list here. Congratulations to Trip Collins, who won a seat of Maxon Cinema 4D 1-year subscription. Thank you to Maxon for donating that amazing gift. Trip was watching on YouTube. A $200 online certificate to our friends at Action VFX goes to awesome stuff. Goes to Megan Margaret Thomas, who is watching on Facebook. Hey. Congratulations, Megan. And a 1-year subscription to the Boris FX Bundle, Sapphire, Continuum, Mocha, and Silhouette goes to Chaz Deli, who was watching on Twitter. So congratulations, Chaz. That's an amazing gift. That's everything we make for a year. Sarah Pauly on YouTube wins a 1-year subscription to Silhouette. Congratulations, Sarah. Stacy Lee wins the prize of the day, a 1-year subscription to Silhouette Paint for Adobe or OFX, your choice. Stacy is watching on Facebook. Congratulations to Stacy. And our last gift for this stream, the Akusnos ERA 4 Bundle Pro goes to @Omar A. Ortiz M, who is watching on Twitter. So congratulations to Omar for winning that. So thanks so much to Ben, to let everyone know, we will be back today at 3 o'clock. And Ben is going to walk us through the new improvements to Sapphire 2020.5. Actually, what am I talking about? We're live again at 1:30.
Yeah,
he's going to be back at 3 o'clock.
Ben will be back.
Yeah. So I apologize. At 1:30, correct? Is that when we're going live?
Yeah, we're going to be starting soon. Yeah, with Mary.
That's Eastern time.
That's correct.
Mary Poplin will be back showing off Mocha Pro 2020.5 at 1:30. So we're going to take a short break. We're going to reset, and hopefully I won't crash that stream. And we'll come back and show the new stuff in Mocha with Mary. Then Ben is back at 3 o'clock. Correct? I got that right.
See, that's true. Yeah. So we're going to be looking at some of the new stuff with Sapphire. Yeah.
And then following Ben, because he'll probably go for 2 hours again straight. John Dickinson is going to show us the new stuff in Continuum 2020.5. That starts at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then last of the day at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Brady Betzel is going to give a cool presentation showing how he uses Continuum in his work. He is a professional colorist and finisher, so he's going to show how he uses Continuum inside Avid Media Composer. So we got a long day and a fun day, and we're going to be giving out prizes at every session. So if you didn't win today, jump back. Definitely tune into some of these other live streams, because we're giving away a lot of awesome gifts. And just to let everyone know today, I forgot to say it at the start, but we are, having our NAB sale, and that is currently ongoing right now. So, for instance, Silhouette paint, currently 25% off. If you buy a multi-product new bundle, that is 50% off, and it's 25% off everything else we sell. So 25% off Mocha Pro, 25% off Silhouette, 25% off Sapphire, 25% off everything. So now's a great time to jump into any of these plugins and try them out yourself. So thank you so much to Ben for a great presentation. Thank you so much to Andy, Ross, and Marco for joining me. And we'll see everybody at 1:30.
Thanks, everyone. See you soon.
All right, thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.